Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com. Today we have an interesting hand from a $3,000 buy-in World Series of Poker event that I probably messed up. So here we have a raise from the player in third position playing nine-handed, and it folds around to me in the big blind with King 10 offsuit playing about 90 big blinds deep. So right off the bat, I think you have to defend here. I mean, we're getting 2-to-1 pot odds, so we need to win about a third of the time, or realize our equity about a third of the time, and I think we probably will, but you have to be very careful with a big card and a little card, and of course a 10 is not a little card, but if we had something like King 8, I'd probably just fold here, given there are no antes in play. As antes come into play, and as your opponent raises smaller, you can be much more inclined to see the flop, but here it's dicey to start off, but I do think calling is somewhat mandatory. Alternatively, we could 3-bet. I think 3-betting is perfectly fine, especially if you think your opponent will play very straightforwardly. And this is a reasonable hand to go for it with, but I'm typically going to call in this spot. So I do call. And the flop comes 9, 8, 6, 2 hearts. So I have a gut shot, and I have a backdoor flush draw, and I have 2 overcards. What more could I ask for, right? This is a scenario where I think check raising is pretty mandatory. I'm going to be check raising here with a lot of my draws. And notice there are a lot of draws available. I'm also going to be check raising with all of my 2 pairs or better. And if I check raise with that range, I know I'm going to probably have a few too many bluffs, but if there is ever a spot to have a few too many bluffs, it is exactly this one. Here, it puts your opponent in a really nasty spot if you check raise. One thing that I would initially look at is that my opponent bet 550 into a 650 pot. That's often the sign of a hand like aces or something like that. That's just a really good hand that's trying to get full value and also protect against various draws. But at the same time, it's really, really important that you don't really lean on these sort of like default reads, because a lot of players just bet they're with their ace king for 550 and then fold if they get raised, thinking I'm going to bet 550, and if my opponent sticks around, clearly has something. So I don't read into bet sizes too much, especially early street bet sizes. But that's a little bit of a warning sign when someone bets this big on the flop. That said, I'm still going for it here pretty much every time. I'm going to make it about 1,500, and that is exactly what I do. And now the opponent calls. So when your opponent calls the flop check raise, you're pretty unhappy. And now we get a pretty rough turn card. The 3 of diamonds is basically a blank. Obviously, we could have hands like queen jack of diamonds in our range, and I would certainly check raise queen jack of diamonds. So the diamond is a reasonable card to bet. That said, check raising the turn with queen jack of diamonds may actually be a pretty sweet play, because that'll give you some fold equity. Whereas if you bet 2,000 on the turn and your opponent shoves, now you probably have to fold your queen jack of diamonds, and that is miserable. So I could actually see check raising here being fine. That said, with my exact hand, king 10 offsuit, no real draw, I'm just giving up. This is a hand that I'm perfectly fine check folding on the turn, because it's really not a good hand, right? We have a gut shot and bad overcards. But if it does go check, we are going to improve sometimes to the best hand, and that's clearly great. And also maybe able to bluff the river some portion of the time. The problem with this, though, is that am I checking any made hands here? I mean, if I have a straight, I'm just betting again. If I have a set, I'm just betting again. So really, what kind of story am I telling here? It doesn't look like a very good one. Of course, you don't want to have a range where you're just check folding with 100% of it, or where you're folding with 100% if your opponent bets. And when you check raise the flop and then check the turn, quite often that range is going to be weaker than normal, or very unbalanced towards garbage hands. So you have to be careful in this spot to make sure you find some strong hands you want to check. So which hands are your strong hands that you want to check? Well, it's probably just going to be your straights. But even then, I don't know if I want to be checking here. So maybe I'm supposed to just keep bluffing. I could actually see betting 2,000 on the turn and then jamming the river being perfectly fine. And I think that is probably what I should have done in this hand. So I'm going to end up with probably too many bluffs if I take that line, but that's okay. I like bluffing. It goes check on the turn. It's not, I mean, it is what it is. On the river, we get a 9. And now I decide to bet. So the 9 of hearts comes on the river, completing the flush. And if I had a flush, I would certainly bet here. I would also bet here with my full houses. But like I just told you, I probably don't have any full houses because I checked the turn. So this is a pretty interesting spot because I'm probably going to bet the turn with a lot of my flush draws. I'm also going to bet the turn with a lot of my sets. So what am I really betting with here? You see what I'm saying? I mean, we're making a bluff here, and I don't know if it succeeds or if it doesn't, but I don't really like this line because it's really, really, really easy for my opponent to call with all of his made hands, like aces. And also, when he folds, is he ever folding out a hand that I beat? And if he has ace high, that's about the only hand that I can see him folding that I beat at this point. If he has a hand like 10-8, he's probably just going to hero call. And if he has a hand like pocket sevens, he's probably just going to hero call. And notice if he has jack 10 or queen jack, he's going to fold, but I had the best hand. So there is a little bit of merit in bluffing and that you make it very difficult for your opponent to bluff you with queen jack and hands like that. But I don't really like this. I think we're going to get called a ton. And when we do get folds, it's very rarely going to be from a hand that we beat. Like maybe we're going to make ace 2 of hearts fold or something like that. But even then, ace 2 of hearts should be pretty close to a call given all of the various draws that I could have missed, especially if my opponent has the ace of hearts in his hand, right? Or if he has like ace of hearts, jack of hearts, or ace of something, jack of hearts. All those hands should be calling. I mean, I guess let me rephrase what I was just saying. Clearly, if he has a flush, he's never folding. I'm saying if he has the ace of hearts in his hand by itself, he should very often consider calling, especially if it's the ace of hearts with another card. There we go. So yeah, I don't like this play. I think if I'm going to bet this river, I need to bet big, probably all in for 2x pot. The problem with 2x pot, though, is that when we are crushed by a hand like a set or full house, well, 9-8 or something like this, or pocket eights, or a flush, our opponent's just literally never folding. It is nice that we have the king of hearts, so that's a solid blocker to the flushes that he could have, because now he can't have ace king or king queen or king jack or king 10 of hearts. But I do think it's somewhat easy for our opponent to have the full houses at this point, especially if he's a little bit tricky or a little bit trappy. So I don't know. I think I would have just preferred a turn bet and a river bet. As played here, if I'm going to bet the river, I think I do need to bet big, but it sure is nasty when your opponent just snaps you off with a full house. So I bet 2,500 and my opponent folds. And even though we win this hand, it's very important to understand that that doesn't necessarily mean you played the hand well, because quite possibly we ran into our opponent when he had exactly a hand like jack 10. And obviously jack 10 is going to fold to a river bet no matter what the bet size is. And all we're doing by betting there is just making a worse hand fold. So it's always important for you to go back and look over your hands and try to find spots where you may be screwed up. And, be honest with yourself, be realistic, and realize that, in reality, you're not going to play great all the time. And I think this is one where I probably should have just gone for the turn bet and the river shove. But as played, I think I probably should have gone for a big river bet, especially if I have some sort of a read that my opponent does not like his hand. So I messed this one up. That's okay. Let's learn from it and move forward with our lives productively. Thank you very much for being here today and watching. If you enjoyed this, let me know on Twitter @JonathanLittle, and I'll talk to you next time.